So we are live on the Brene Brown Book Club. And it's a little distracting because there's a little delay. Okay, so I'm not sure how we can correct that. Any ideas, Jen? Anyway, this is Allison Livingston and Jen.
Yeah, mute the live stream through the Facebook. It's feeding back.
And the Facebook. That's a good idea. Let's try. Sorry for the technical difficulties, everyone. We're going to get this organized.
Well, what's great is we're talking about Brene Brown's work, and one of her books is called The Gifts of Imperfection. And we are just getting so many opportunities to practice
and FFT that you just
FFT and really honing in on what is the gift of imperfection.
Yes, exactly. So let's take it from the top again, Jen. So welcome everyone in the Brene Brown Book Club. We are so excited to be here. I am Allison Livingston from 5 Steps to Connect, and Jen Emily from Your Own Consulting, and working with parents who are having kids who are addicted and that whole family dynamic. So we are here because we are the biggest fans of Brene Brown, and we put on this book club, and we are not the definitive source. We're just speaking from our own opinions, but we are so excited about integrating this work that Brene talks about more and more and more in our lives. And one of the questions we get is, which book do I read first of all of her amazing work? And so we're going to just talk about that. And Jen, why are you here and what are you doing? What do you like?
So actually, she has so many books, as you can see in the background. I don't know if you can see it, but she has so many books, and I've been through all of these, minus maybe I thought it was just me. I haven't quite gotten into this, but then I started with Daring Greatly. That's the book that I started with. So the immediate assumption would be, well, that should be the first book that anyone should start with. And I don't exactly agree with that now that I've been through them all. I went back. The second book I did was The Gifts of Imperfection, and then I ran through the rest of them. And what I say to anyone who says, where do I start? It's always The Gifts of Imperfection for me. Now, someone else may have a totally different recommendation for another reason. So again, like you said, we are not the definitive source on how this should work. This is my personal journey opinion about where I think someone should start. And the reason I say that, though, is I love her guideposts because she is a shame researcher. We're talking about vulnerability. This can be a very difficult subject for anyone. I think we all struggle with vulnerability. And the guideposts, what I love is it gives us a way to cultivate the things that we need more of. So it gives us that foundation when we're struggling with all these other topics that she talks about in her books, and Daring Greatly and Rising Strong, Braving the Wilderness. When we find ourselves struggling, we have somewhere to go back to kind of hone is like, okay, what am I needing? What do I need to cultivate more of? And then she gives us kind of like a resource book to give us ideas on how to give ourselves what we need when we're struggling with vulnerabilities, when we're struggling with the shame cycles and boundaries, is we have a great jumping off point. So that's, for me personally, why I recommend Gifts of Imperfection first, is because that's going to give someone a solid foundation to give people what they need moving forward.
I love that. And I so love that you said it was your journey, because again, we're all doing the best we can. And like when we started this with the echoing and the thing not working, it's when we're struggling. I mean, I get hot, and I was starting to get all tense, and I was like, oh shoot, because I want to appear and be together and all of you to like me. And I was like messing up. And so those are the moments in life. And this isn't for when we're coasting along. This isn't for when everything is going great. This is for when your mother-in-law goes on hospice, which I'm actually currently in the middle of. And it's for when something happens with your child, or they feel anxious, or your husband loses his job, or you lose your job, or these are for the hard moments in life, or you're having a fight with your friend. And instead of armoring up, which is our go-to, instead of putting all in all, like it's like we're thinking, we get rational, or we numb out, or we blame it on somebody else. Those are our armor. Instead of doing that, can we sit in the discomfort of vulnerability, even feeling shame, and not get taken out of that by armor? Can we just be in that discomfort? And that is so, for me, what I have relied on Brene Brown's work to do, is to meet me and guide me and hold me in these hard moments. And so that's why I too have found that The Gifts of Imperfection and her renewed 10-year anniversary is even better. Her audiobook, when she reads it, is just so, it feels like she's there talking to you in your living room, right?
Yeah.
And so that's what I really value. And on top of that, the other thing I love is that it breaks it down into this 10-fold what to do and what to cultivate, what to do more of and what to do less of. So it's an easy structure. She tells stories, and then she has a hub, and there's this inventory. So you can take these questions, and it gives, that's what we recommend. And we're going to go into why we chose this, because we're going to kick it off in our next book club, and we're going to talk more about that. Is that then you can get sort of a measure of where you're more strong and where you need more support. And that's another thing, which is on the website, and we'll give you a link to it, which is why it makes that book just even more accessible as the first book to start with.
Absolutely, because it definitely hits my left brain self. And here's the thing, and I don't think I'm alone in this, but I don't want to speak for anyone else, where I really struggle when it comes to like having those emotions, really struggling. You say something like you need more support. What does that look like? How does that like?
And I don't want more support. I don't want to have to be the one who needs support. I want to be the one giving it.
Right, exactly. So it's like, what are we even asking for? And like, those are the questions that it's like, that's really vague. That's really like, it's misunderstood. I don't always know what my next step in is when someone says something like, oh, you really need to, either get more support or whatever. But it's like for the wholehearted inventory, for the gifts of imperfection and these guideposts, it gives us a really clear place to start.
Yeah.
And we don't always know what the end result is, but it does give us a good direction to start, because like you said, support is so important, and it absolutely is. But sometimes we need to have a clear understanding of what it is that we're asking for. What do we need?
Yeah,
How do we ask for it?
Yeah. I love that you said that, because for me, and what Brene Brown describes, is when we get into a shame storm, like someone criticizes me, you didn't do that well, you're wrong, then I just can either freeze, or I go to, no, I didn't, I get all defensive, or I just withdraw. I just want to go away and distract myself, or numb with social media or food or alcohol or whatever,
Right.
instead of just sitting in, ooh, that was hard to hear.
Yeah.
And because I take it as about my worth, that I'm not enough, that I don't matter, that I'm not okay, instead of, oh, that's just one person's opinion, and I can decide if it fits me or not. But again, that whole journey that Brene Brown, it's complex. And for me, it sends me to an unconscious layer. And so, like you said, when you have something tangible, just a first step, which the gifts can support us with, then that can give us, like you said, some tangible place to hold on to.
Yeah, it's like, 1,000 things may come up for us in an instant that someone says, does, in a feeling. We may have 1,000 things flood to the surface. How do we start working through the starting point to kind of untangle what just happened. And we need a place to start. We need to figure out, okay, you know what? Like for me, I'm sitting here looking at my wholehearted inventory, and the one that it says that I need to cultivate more of is the one is numbing and powerlessness, is that's letting go of, and cultivating more of a resilient spirit. Now the opportunity for me is resilient spirit. How do I cultivate more of a resilient spirit? Let me just go to the Gifts of Imperfection and read Guidepost 3. Let me just see what Brene Brown has to say and see if it can't trigger a next best step for me.
Yes, that's beautifully said. And again, it's because the fight, flight, freeze that the shame evokes in us is so powerful. It's like, millions of years old. And it comes from when we're like 5 and 6 and 7 years old, these young selves. And we're just not very resourced. And so we get these habits that are so ingrained, and they're armoring habits. And so those are the things we're trying to gently let go of and grow more skills in the staying in the biology of discomfort, so that we can heal past trauma and we can just be in relationship in those hard moments.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So that's really like the way I approach when someone asks that question, even though I got to be honest with you, Daring Greatly had such a profound impact on my life when I started with that book. It changed me. It's what drove me to even creating the book club that I do now. So many things about it. I loved it. And yet the Gifts of Imperfection is where I definitely recommend people to start from my perspective, in my opinion.
I love that you said that. And we'll probably talk more about all of them, because for me, the most impactful book was Rising Strong, because that's all about when you get knocked over. And the whole thing is, when you're daring greatly, when you are stepping into vulnerability, you're going to get knocked down. Someone is going to criticize you even more. You're going to feel shame. And so how do you get yourself back up off the floor? And that was what I really needed and support with. And so, but I couldn't have probably gotten enough out of Rising Strong if I hadn't started with Gifts of Imperfection.
Right. And I love that one in particular, because I think each of the books gives a person very much a different way of being, and the journey is going to be very different. So we have our favorites for favorite reasons, right? Mine was the one that I needed to figure out how to truly be vulnerable, how to really sit in that uncomfortable. And it was like I wasn't even ready to look at getting back up. I just needed to learn what does it even mean to be vulnerable. And I don't think for me, I had really been very practiced at that. I was so used to shutting down, so used to armoring up, so used to all of those things. It was like I would dissociate, I would detach, I would live my life in anxiety, I would do all of those things. And then it was like I needed to learn something different. So that was the profound. But for you, it was Rising Strong, because you're like, okay, now what?
Yeah. Well, I actually have learning how to be vulnerable too. So I'm glad you reminded me of that. That's definitely a part. And I hate it. It's so, like Brene Brown says, I wish I could tell you that it is getting better, but it's not. It's hard, and it's going to be uncomfortable all the time. So for me, the learning has been how to be and sit biologically in the discomfort as the biggest first step. And that's so much of me doesn't want to do that. So I totally agree with you. And then the other part is I love the new Atlas of the Heart, because it's so profound about emotions and our emotional journey. And I think as a culture, epidemically, in general, we are a culture who doesn't want to think about or feel emotions. And so that's my work as a parent coach, is to really support parents around that. So
and giving us all good. Yeah. And it helps us give us language to our experience. And I think language can be very helpful in understanding, maybe what's happening with us. So, and this is one of the things that I really love, and why I'm such a big fan, I think, of Brene Brown in particular, is because she continues to show us what it means to be vulnerable, be messy, be imperfect. She models it. She does like she really is never trying to be anything other than imperfectly her, right? And she'll model that, and she'll make mistakes, she'll do things, and then she may change course because she gets down a road and she's like, I don't know that this is the road I want to keep going down. I'm not enjoying whatever it is. And she will change that course. And sometimes it's hard for us because we're like, but we're really enjoying this course for you, but we're not the ones in it. Right. But I do think that, part of being the vulnerable and armoring is how do we really show up as human? And I think we're never gonna get rid of our humanity.
And I hope not, because the other part that's so profound for me is she recognizes that we cannot connect with another human being until we connect with our own vulnerability, our own humanness, our own imperfection. And if I'm here all armored and trying to look good and do it right and be perfect, I'm not connecting with anyone because I'm not connecting with myself. And so that for me was such a profound concept that I can't love you any more than I love myself. So I've got to start here and with vulnerability and discomfort. And the beauty is that the discomfort, once we sit in it, can give us its message, talk to us about our needs, and then it goes away and it doesn't last forever. So that's one of the most important messages is we're not alone and the discomfort won't last forever.
I know. What a great message. Yeah.
We could talk about this all day long, but we want to keep these sort of, short enough that we want to, and we want to hear from you. We want this to be engaging. We want this whole community to be the book club and the posts and the questions. And as we are grappling with how to let go of our armor and cultivate our humanness, our vulnerability, our playing, our rest, all the things that help us support our vulnerability and our connection with each other. So we hope you'll ask questions. We'll hope you'll answer on the post of this. What is your favorite book and why do you choose that to recommend for first? We want to hear from the whole community, all 26,700 of us.
Absolutely. And every time someone asks this question, there's always various answers for good reasons. And so it's like, I like to hear why someone else thinks that this is the book that someone else should start with.
Yes, exactly. Because there's no right or wrong. There is no right or wrong. And Brene Brown even says that we'll add a post that she has on her website about her opinion about which book to read first, which she actually does say is The Gifts of Imperfection. So before we go, we're going to have another Facebook Live next week. And we're going to talk about with the current book club and all the ins and outs, and answer any question you have about joining us the following week after that, the 24th and the 25th.
Yeah, so excited.
Wonderful. Well, thank you all for joining us, and we are so glad to be here.